Hey guys, thanks for joining us today for Dr. Kim Live. Today we're going to talk about 2 of the 7 secrets from awesome marriage. We're going to talk about stop and we're going to talk about start. And so we'll be right back. All right, hope you guys are having a great day. It's good to see you today. It's good to be with you on Dr. Kim Live. Today we are going to talk about the first 2 secrets from my book, 7 Secrets to an Awesome Marriage. I think you're going to enjoy that. The first of the 7 secrets is just what you would expect it to be. It is start. I know it isn't. It's stop. Just try to confuse you a little bit there. But I want you to, as we think about this today, I want to think about this. Consider this. God created everything. He said it was good, except for one thing. He didn't like it that man was alone. But God fixed that problem, and he created woman and marriage all at the same time. Marriage was his idea. Let that soak in a minute. In a culture where there's so many negatives about marriage, the creator of the universe says marriage is good. It's awesome. It's amazing. First secret is stop. You know, one of the things people say, well, why would you start with this one? Well, stop, we talk about stop the insanity. So what's insanity as we're defining it here? It is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. So if I have something that I'm doing in my marriage and it's not working, and I keep doing that same thing over and over, maybe I'm trying to change Nancy. Maybe I'm trying to fit her into this mold, and I keep trying and trying and trying, and it's not going to work. Instead of just accepting who she is, letting God change her, those kind of things, I keep trying to do the same thing over and over. That's insanity. That's not how marriage was created to work anyway. So I think for a lot of us, it does go back to our expectations. You know, what are our expectations of our spouse? Are they realistic? Are they not realistic? But a lot of times our expectations of our spouse come from our family of origin. I mean, that's what we had modeled. Your mom and dad, the home you grew up in, wherever, that was a single home, parents together, that was your textbook of what a marriage is supposed to be. And if that was healthy, that's great. If it wasn't, that gives you some baggage to drag into marriage. And either way, you and your spouse have to create your marriage for you, because every marriage is completely unique. So one of the things that I ask couples to do a lot of time when we're talking about expectations is just to make a list of their expectations for their spouse, and then to sit down together and talk about them. Maybe the wife shares one, then the husband shares one. You can say, yeah, that's an expectation I can do, or I think that one's kind of unrealistic for me, or I don't understand that. But as you go through and you can cross them off, you can see what's realistic, what's not, and it helps you, one, to let your spouse know what your expectations are, 2, for their input, whether it's realistic or not, and then for you to be able to be much more in tune with your spouse and realistic about the expectations you have. Because what I see a lot of times, we put expectations on our spouse that they can't fulfill. Like sometimes we want them to do things that God can only do, like love us unconditionally, love us perfectly. As much as I love Nancy, I cannot be perfect in those things every single day, day after day. I just can't. And so I think we get into those traps too. And so you can do your list, you can go over together, and then decide what to do. All right, let's look at a couple of questions that came in today. I would love to have your questions. See if we can get them up here. For some reason, I'm not getting it. Try again here. Maybe that'll do it. All right. First question, how do you restore marriage after years of distance? And, you know, I think that's, it's amazing to me how sometimes we get in this and we have this distance and we keep going day after day after day. And all of a sudden there is a year, and then maybe 2 years or 5 years, and we don't have the marriage that we want. And maybe we're not beating each other up emotionally or whatever, but we're just existing together and we're not getting what we want out of marriage. So the first step, of a couple came into me, one, I want to know, do they both want this? Because they got to both be on the same page, because it's going to take some work to do that. Then they've got to begin to carve out, to do some things different, to carve out time together every day. And we'll talk about, what do you do with that time? You know, it may be awkward at first because you haven't really talked for a while, but just sharing your day is important. Or you know, one of the great questions is, how did you see God at work in the world today, in your world today? But beginning to communicate that way, to reinstitute date nights. And date nights, not where you just go to a movie and go home, but a date night where you have time to talk and interact. When we go to a movie, we usually either go to dinner before or after, so we have that time to talk. I really like going to an early movie, going to dinner after. So if the movie was kind of interesting, we can talk about that, and then we can talk about some other things also. So the main thing I would say to that question is, yes, there's hope. Yes, it can be. And if you both want it and you're both willing to work, you will begin to reap the benefits of the work you're putting in. And that makes it all worthwhile. And the more you do that, the more you grow. And you just keep doing it. If you're not intentional about your marriage consistently, you're going to grow distant. So you got to be intentional, I think, every single day. Hope that helps. Okay, here's one more question. How can you have the best marriage possible when only one of you is willing to fight for your marriage? You can't. I mean, honestly, it takes two to make the marriage work. Now, if this was my situation and say Nancy didn't want the marriage work and I did, and we went through that, not that she didn't totally want to drop work, but she wasn't sure early on in the marriage if she wanted to stay in or not, or if she really loved me or not. What God taught me through that, and it has helped me so much over the years, is that I had to be the husband that he wanted me to be every day, no matter what Nancy did. And so I did that, and I did it consistently. And I knew I couldn't just have some great oratory thing that was going to convince her that we needed to stay together. I certainly didn't want to beg, and she would have thought you wimp or whatever. But I wanted her to know that I cared for her and I loved her. So I tried to love her in the way that God told me to love her. And I did that consistently. And I think with that, plus a wonderful mentor lady that Nancy had, her prayers about it, locked her into our marriage in a way that she wasn't before. And we chose at that time to take divorce off the table. And we've been working. Our marriage hadn't been perfect since then, but we knew we weren't going to get divorced. We knew we were going to work on it. We knew we were going to overcome whatever obstacles we had, and we began to do that. So what I would suggest you to do is do that. And then every day, what I knew every day at night, I could go to bed and I could say, God, with your help, I did a pretty good job today. Help me do better tomorrow. You're doing what you can do. That's all you can do. My prayer and my hope is, and your prayer for your spouse is, that they will respond at some point. And then they'll say, because you're so all in, I want to be all in too. So hope that helps. Hope it's something that you guys can use. We'll talk today about the book 7 Secrets to an Awesome Marriage. And so I want to show you, this is a promo video that we did, but it says a lot about the book that came out right when the book came out.
An awesome marriage is a journey. It's a life spent together and a true gift from God. It's the substance of struggle and victory, sorrow and joy, tears and laughter. It's embracing companionship and time together. It's seeing every challenge as an opportunity for God to move your relationship forward. Every couple deals with staying connected, resolving conflict, and balancing relationships. But too many give up when instead they should fight for their marriage. No matter where your marriage is now, there are secrets to help close the gap between where it is and where God wants it to be.
All right, that book, and here is a copy of it. You saw it right there in the video. It's still available. Amazon, many big bookstores, certainly Christian bookstores, have it. It is at Amazon.com, though. It is BarnesandNoble.com. It's all those places that you regularly get books. Love for you to do that. Love for you to get that book. We've had some great feedback about it over time. So, all right. One of the things that we do that we have a lot of fun with is some vlogs that we do on YouTube. And so I want us to look at one of those vlogs now. It's called something. 3 things to not post on social media. Today we're going to talk about 3 things to never post on social media. So Social media is a great tool and can be used to benefit our marriages if we use it wisely. There are a few things that are really destructive when posted on social media. So today, let's look at some things to avoid. Here are 3 things to never post online. Number 1, spouse bashing memes. Marriage can be annoyingly funny. I get it. And the conflicts and difficulties of marriage are really relatable to many people. There are things we all do in marriage that we can laugh at. But be careful what memes you like and repost online. Honor your spouse in your marriage by not making your spouse look bad online. If a meme is particularly negative to husbands or wives, just stay clear of those. The goal is to honor marriage and show it in a good light. Number 2, revealing photos of yourself. Your body's a temple. Your body is meant to be enjoyed by your spouse and your spouse only. If you post a revealing photo of yourself, it dishonors the sanctity of marriage and it dishonors your spouse. Save intimacy solely for your spouse by being careful what pictures of yourself you post online. Number 3, personal things you haven't okayed with your spouse. It's important to not overshare at the expense of your spouse online. If you want to share more personal updates or things online, check with your spouse first. There's nothing worse than your family business being out in public when you didn't want it to be. This isn't about control, it's about mutual love and respect. Respect your spouse by checking with them first. That's 3 things to never post on social media. We've got so much free content that we have on YouTube. I'd love for you to subscribe to our channel. Just go to YouTube, Awesome Marriage Channel, where you are right now, and then just click the subscribe button there, and you can subscribe. I love all you guys who are watching us live now. Thanks for the thumbs ups. I'd love to have, if you guys have a question about anything relationship or marriage. We're talking today about 7 secrets, and we're talking about start and stop, but anything that has to do with marriage, I would love to answer your questions. So just post them there in the comments, and I will be glad to answer them. So the first one we talked about was stop the insanity. And then the second one is start. Begins with putting God first in your life. Start putting God first in your life. And some people say, well, why didn't you put that first? Well, what my experience is, and if you look at a 12-step model of healing, what it says is, you've got to admit you have a problem. Well, I think stopping the insanity is admitting you have a problem, and then begin putting God first in your life. Certainly you cry out to God. Certainly you want God to be there. But you got to stop some of this craziness you're doing as you begin to put God first and let Him really work in your marriage, in your life like that. So something I feel that's 100% true, and this is not rocket science, but I think just sharing with it, I hope it encourages you. When my relationship with God is where it needs to be, my relationship with Nancy is where it needs to be too. And when my relationship with God is not where it needs to be, neither is my relationship with Nancy. And so I want to intentionally put God first every day. So I'm going to tell you what I do. And this is not, I am not putting myself on a pedestal here. I don't do this perfectly. There are days that I kind of grind through this because it's not like I really want to do it. But I do it, and consistently it makes a difference. And there's times when I'm not perfect at this, but when I do this consistently, oh my gosh, it makes such a difference. First thing in the morning, I start my day and I end it with Him. I pray, I seek God's wisdom, I pray for my marriage, for my family, and I've got another prayer list of people I pray for. During the day, I try to filter everything that I do and that happens through Him. In some ways, it's just like, okay, what would Jesus do in this situation? Or how would Jesus handle this situation? Or is that something I need to look at? Do I need to look at that TV show? Or do I need to look at this? Or do I need to listen to this? And just try to filter it, because I want to fill my mind and my heart with things that are of God. And not in a prudish way, but I know He has my best interests at heart, so that's what I want. I also, in my day with prayer with Nancy, we usually read a YouVersion Bible app one of the days in one of those. And we also both we're reading through the Bible in the year, and we both usually read that in the morning. We read the same things. We don't read it together, but we're reading the same things. So if we have questions or want to talk about it, we know that each other has read the same thing. And so I try to do that in the morning, have my time with God, have my time with Nancy and God at night. During the day, try to filter things. And I pray a lot during the day. As a counselor, I pray for my clients. I pray with my clients. When I'm doing also marriage stuff, I pray about that. I know that if I'm going to be my best, I got to have a God consciousness with me every single part of the day. God's my number one, Nancy's my number two, and that's really what START is all about. The key is being intentional about that every single day. All right, we'll see if you guys have any questions. I'd love for you guys to ask questions. Maybe you don't have any. That's okay. I'm glad you're looking in. That's awesome too. So here's a couple more questions that we got earlier. How many times a month do you think we need to be intimate? What if I am going through menopause or my husband has ED? How can we work on this? Great question, because I think a lot of couples face that. When Nancy and I were first married, there was just no barriers there. We didn't have kids. We didn't have the distractions. We just really had more time for each other and for the sexual relationship. And what we learned over time, we had to be more intentional about that. I hate the question to put a number on something. I think it can vary from couple to couple. I think a couple, if you're healthy, needs to be 1 or 2 times a week. Now, when you're going through menopause, I've never been through menopause. Nancy has. So I know that things are different for you at that time. And so I think at that time, it's probably more about what is best for your marriage. And there's a closeness and intimacy that comes with that. And, Nancy's told me, maybe she didn't get as sexually excited as maybe she had other times, or maybe she didn't get sexually excited at all. She loved the closeness. She loved me holding her. She loved me, all those kind of things. She enjoys that part of it. And so I had to learn, because I felt like as a man, if I couldn't give her pleasure every time we made love, that I'd failed in some way. And she's convinced me that no, I didn't. That she really did enjoy that. Do I, as a man, enjoy it more if she has pleasure in it too? Yeah. I think we're kind of wired that way. But it doesn't mean that it's not good otherwise. So I would say 1 or 2 a week. Try to work that as a goal. Don't feel guilt if you don't, but work toward that. The ED thing, I would first go to a urologist, a good urologist. I would try medications. I would try whatever it takes to cure that problem. Guys that I talk to in counseling, that is, for most guys, I know there's probably some exceptions, a fixable problem. Sometimes it's our pride that keeps us from doing that, because we didn't have to do that when we were 16. Really? I know. I had a lot of things I didn't have to do when I was 16. My body didn't hurt when I get up in the morning when I was 16, So whatever it takes, guys, don't be afraid to do that. I would say this. I would go to a urologist MD first. I know there's men's clinics and things like that, and I'm not dissing them at this point. I just have a great urologist. He has helped me. He's helped Nancy and I. I had 11 years ago, I had prostate cancer. He found it quickly. He did the surgery. I've been cancer-free for 11 years. I just believe in a urologist. I would start there and see what he says. Hope that helps. Okay. One more question, and then we're going to do a video. Would you suggest I pursue my husband sexually every day? My marriage would be awesome. I guess this is a wife doing it. If I pursue my husband sexually every day, my marriage would be awesome. Your husband would probably think so. Now, the thing is, if I don't want, I think for women, we love to be, usually the man pursues. We love it when our wives pursue. I know that doesn't usually happen every day. If you want to do that, I think that's probably fine, as long as you don't resent that. So, I've had couples, actually just a couple that talked about last week, and they had done a thing where they had just made a commitment to have sex every day for 30 days. Because they wanted to explore some new things, they wanted to get in a rhythm together, and so they both committed to do that. My guess is, I didn't ask them a question, my guess is, were there days during that 30 days that one or the other or both felt like, I'm really tired tonight or whatever, but they persevered through that, and they would say it really grew the relationship. Now, I'm not recommending that to everybody, but I do think that whole idea of being intentional about your sex life is important, because it's a gift from God, and I know it strengthens, grows, and connects us in our marriage relationship. So pursue, if you want to pursue, enjoy that. Husbands enjoy that. And if your husband pursues, be open to that. Usually the husband has the higher sex drive. And so usually we can drive our wives crazy sometimes because they think that's all we think about is sex, which isn't completely true. But it's just the way we're wired. And so we're going to be more interested in it. All right. Before I get in trouble, I better get off of that one. Let's look at one of our One Thing videos, and we have so many exciting things coming up with One Thing right after the first of the year. We are going to have One Thing podcast will be So you guys get to hear this first. We'll be on its own. We're going to have a One Thing YouVersion plan. That'll be a 30-day plan to kick your year off. We're going to have some things that are great designed just for you guys to help you do better at being intentional about your marriage. We're going to kick off January 2019 with a huge, all kinds of things around One Thing, in addition to my new book, which we're going to be talking about later. Let's look at this One Thing video. You know, when our kids were still at home, there were times when discipline was necessary. Timeouts were an invaluable disciplinary strategy that worked really well with both of our kids. The timeout slowed things down, gave everyone a chance to think things over, and then set the stage for getting things back on track. Usually, especially as the kids got older, the timeout was spent in the room. A few weeks ago, I thought Nancy and I needed a timeout, not to be disciplined, but to slow things down a little. The day had been hectic, no relief in sight, and we had not had a chance to connect. We needed to have time alone with the rest of the world blocked out. Like us, you and your spouse may benefit from a couple's time out every now and then. It may just be 10 or 15 minutes, but it can make a difference in your relationship. If your home is full of people, you can take a short time out in your bedroom. Now, what do you do with the time out? Well, that's totally up to the two of you. Today's One Thing, take a 10-minute time out with your spouse today. Okay, the timeouts for your spouse together, it's so important that you have that intentional time together. So I just can't emphasize that enough, how important that is to do that consistently. All right, let's look and see. I think we've got one thing I want to talk to you a minute about, our YouVersion plan on 7 Secrets to an Awesome Marriage. And this has been our most popular plan. We have had over 242,000 people complete that plan. So hopefully that's 242,000 couples that did that together. That's over 500,000 people have completed this plan. And the other thing that's exciting, this is one of our 2 plans that's in Spanish, and over 35,000 people have completed that plan in Spanish. And it's amazing what God has done with that, and I love that. So we are going to look at a YouVersion, part of the YouVersion plan there. And let's look at one of the videos that goes along, because each one has a video, has some text, has scripture, things to pray about, next steps, all that good stuff that we do in our YouVersion plans. Here's the one on Start.
When you hear the word insanity, what comes to your mind? Maybe it's a character from a movie or a decision you saw someone make in the past. For me, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. We can all have our little insanities, and most of them are harmless and affect nobody but ourselves. But what about the insanities we have in marriage? Are they harmless? Do they just affect us and nobody else? What about our expectations? Can they be insanities? I grew up in a great home. My parents were good parents, and they had an incredible marriage. That was my model, and I liked it a lot. So when Nancy and I got married, I tried to fit her into the same mold as my mom. My mother was a great wife. Nancy wanted to be a great wife. So Nancy needed to be like my mom. Made perfect sense to me. That was my expectation. But there were a couple things wrong with that. 2 pretty big things. Nancy wasn't my mom, and she didn't want to be. And I was not going to be able to force her into anything. So my insanity was trying to do this over and over in the first years of our marriage. So what about you? What expectations do you have in your marriage? Are they realistic? Have you shared them with your spouse? You know, honestly, my expectation of Nancy was unrealistic. Not that I wanted her to be a great wife, because I did. And she wanted to be a great wife too. But I wanted to define that by my mom. And the really crazy part was I never shared those expectations with Nancy. And I got mad at her when she didn't meet them. Insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So now would be a great time to take a deeper look at your marriage. What are your expectations? Are they realistic? Have you shared them? Have they turned into insanities? What if you rated your marriage today on a 1 to 10 scale? Where would you rate it? Where would you want it to be in 5 years or 10 years? And what do you need to do today to have the marriage you want tomorrow? Change is always difficult, and the first step is usually the hardest. Don't let something stand in the way of having the marriage that God has designed perfectly for you.
Okay. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope you'll try the YouVersion plan. I think you'd like it. The book is available, 7 Secrets to an Awesome Marriage. One of the things that we launched last Friday is our latest date box. And if you haven't gotten one, they come in the mail like this, so it really comes cool when you get it in the mail. It's a cool purple box, and then you open it up, and like this one is Party in the Park. And so there is this Awesome Marriage blanket because it gets a little chillier, or you can lay on it. But you can have great fall picnics, late fall picnics. So that is in there, and then there's all kinds of good stuff in here. There is it's your guide for your date. It's got all kinds of cool stuff in it. It has a verse, and it also has a prayer that you can do together. It has some sparkling red grape juice because, well, that's what we have to do. It has a game. This is the dice game that's in here. Got stuff for your picnic. I got bug spray. Got some other things that lead you through that to have that great party in the park date. So, Awesome Marriage Date Box. I would love for you to do that. If you want one, we have a few left. I think we have maybe 40 or 50 left, something like that, out of this one. And so you can get that. Go to our website. Search for the date box, and you can get your date box right there, which is cool. It's really fun. Now, I think that's about everything we had for today. Thank you for all you guys who've joined us live, and please let people know. We'll do this every Tuesday at 2 o'clock. We'll be flipping over to Facebook in a minute, doing the same thing over there. But it's fun. I'd love to have your questions, so hopefully we'll get more questions next time. And next time we will be talking about stopping unhealthy conflict. Conflict is something that affects all of us in marriage. If you don't have conflict, you're probably not talking to each other or something like that. I mean, seriously, we all have conflict. It's learning how to do that, to handle that in a good way. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next week.